Hello, welcome to the K Touch. My name is Kay, and here we have Art with Conversation. I am so excited today. Now, the individual I'm about to speak with, the guest we have on this show, is the brains behind Comic Republic. Now, when we talk about artists and the creative space, especially in Nigeria and Africa as a whole, there are a few names you don't want to mess with. So, Comic Republic is one of the names that is championing the cause of African inspired superheroes. But now it seems, and I'm really interested in the direction that they're going, partly now, that they're telling some of our actual true historical stories. I am so excited to have Sir Jide Martin on the podcast with us today to talk about the story behind Chibok, the comic. And for those who don't know, before I start getting into it, but Chibok is recounting the harrowing tale of the kidnapping of girls, school children, girls of school children age back in 2014, and it is talking about the efforts and all that happened around it, but also coming with an interesting angle with which it is looking at it. Sajide Martin, thank you for coming today. Welcome to my podcast.
Thank you for having me. I must take the opportunity to thank, you and gentlemen, people like yourself in the media space who are shining a light on what we're doing as a creative. I must say thank you, and also shedding light on African history, African story. Who are we but the story that we tell? And without people like you to be narrative champions, people won't even know what we are doing in the dark. So thank you again. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
The pleasure is all mine, sir. I'm going to crack right on because I can't wait to start asking you questions. I mean, you are the creative brains behind the Ireti, Guardian Prime, Beats, Visionary. Wow. So please just be patient with me with a few of these questions that I'm going to be asking. So can I start from the top? Can you tell us what sparked the idea behind Chibok as a comic series?
I think there are two critical moments, what we like to call canon moments as comic book readers, right? The canon moment is that thing that changes everything, and there are two for me. Growing up, when I heard what happened to the Chibok girls, even before it became popular to talk about the Chibok girls, just hearing what was happening and just thinking about young women. I have sisters. I have a mother. I have two sisters, and I know what will happen if anything happens to them, how I would want to defend and protect them. So I could relate with, the young ladies that were abducted and the way that they were. And we know what the Sahel region in Africa in general, the terrorism that has been going on in that region and the lack of security has been just mind-blowing, in the sense that unbelievable to fathom the pain and the harshness people in that area are going through because of terrorism, and understanding that they are mostly politically driven. So when that happened, I was in disbelief, and I kept feeling like, as a Nigerian, we were not doing enough as men, and I do believe in that men should protect, provide, and preserve that. And as men, I didn't feel like we're doing enough to protect our country. If I almost felt like I could just pick up arms and go and do something about it. And this was I call it the superhero complex in me. So it was painful. That was the first thing. And then seeing people all around the world, bring back our girls was the hashtag.
Yeah.
And I had a glimmer of hope that, okay, we're going to have international intervention. But we did not. It was all publicity. A lot of people outside the country were shining a light on it, but I didn't see that translate to physical manifestation of people trying to come and really help us. You know how you watch these movies where you see some rogue agent just go in without the government permission and then, solve everything, and that didn't happen. And every year I tried to keep up with the news, anything that came out on it. I tried to listen to see if these girls were going to be saved, and there were, splinters of, oh, this person was saved here, this person was saved there, but no major effort, both from our government and from the international community to help bring these girls back. It was more of people paying tribute. And I was like, if you think about the lives of the young girls themselves, this is not enough for them. We're not doing enough for them. Vis-a-vis, I think it was about 2 years ago. So Comic Republic is creator-led. What most people don't understand is that I'm an artist myself. I'm not one of these people who are you know, enthusiasts who like the industry and are coming to profit from it. I breathe it. It's in my blood, right? I draw, I create. 90% of the company was me doing most of those things myself. So when I bring people in, when I bring my team in, I always tell them that create an IP, that look at an IP as a legacy, an investment in the future, right? You sow the seeds, you build it up, it would outlive you. People will invest in it either to help you develop it or want to purchase anything that has to do with that IP. But like anything else that is worth monetizing, you have to grow it first. So I convince members of my team to always come up with an IP suggestion. And then there was a young lady in our team. Her name is Yukara Wanogo, and she went from being an intern, to front desk. And at this point in time, she had grown up the ranks to project lead in Comic Republic. And she said, "Oh, she's ready to come up with an IP, and that she thinks it should be something about what happened to the girls in Chibok." And I was like, "That's brilliant." Right. And she wanted to call it Bring Back Our Girls or something. And I said, no. You know what? You've come up with the idea. I leave telling stories. Drop it on my table. I'll create an IP out of this. The idea should be about the girls, right? Don't worry, I'll do it. And so she left it with me. I brought in my executive assistant, Praise, and I said, I want to write this story. And, with Praise, what I do is I bounce off ideas. She's been my assistant for 4 years, so she knows the way I think. And then we started bouncing ideas back and forth. And then we started putting pen to paper, So I started first with, how do we express? How do we show people what the girls really went through? But at the same time, I wanted to take the girls from being victims. I wanted their story to go from just being victims to what we can do to make this better. And I decided that I think the victim should also be the protagonist of this story. So we started writing this mini story called Chibok. We decided to call it Chibok because I feel like we should not forget the essence, what it happened, what it was about. And we titled it Chibok. We decided to make the story about 2 girls, following real life events. We did a lot of research. So, quick tip, a lot of the things that you see happen to the girls are things that actually really happen. At least between the first 3 to 4 stories, we try to stay historically
consistent with it.
Yes. Of course, there'll be a slight fictional twist, so maybe we'll change the names and one or two things. But these are actual stories from people who were discovered, found, or people who have died. And we wove that into the first 3 episodes, and then we're adding the fictional parts of it on their journey through enslavement, because that's what it was.
That's what it was.
Yes, up until some kind of redemption.
So thank you for a very interesting introduction, and I'm going to come back later to your creative process and how that goes about. But this is really a bold move for Comic Republic. And I can't wait. I mean, we're going to also go if there are any other stories coming out in terms of Nigeria's history from Comic Republic, because I can only imagine this thing going places. Well, can you tell us a bit, like, how do you approach the story with the sensitivity that it requires? Because a lot of this, I was looking through of it, and I'd like your permission to show a few images once this is ready. But I was looking at some of the artistry, and I was blown away. But I couldn't help but think of how that would trigger readers. So I wanted to know from your thoughts how you see approaching it with the sensitivity it deserves.
So the very first thing is to respect the culture and the people that it affects. Right? Is to try and portray them in a way that is sincere, but yet highlighting their way of life. Right? So, for example, if you notice in the comic books, the ladies are proudly dressed in hijab throughout. Right? And that was one of the things that we're like, look, in no way are we going to desecrate this mode of appearance or the way that they dress. Right? And then also, we looked for lack of a better word, a northerner to help us run through to see, is there anything here that would be offensive? right? Also with the dialogue, also after it's been carefully read and written, and our head of writing, he's very particular, he's risk averse. A
Mm.
gentleman called Wala Abelenja, and he went through the story 3 4 times, and there's so many things. It's like, no, this is triggering, this is upsetting, let's take it
Mm.
out, let's do this, let's do that. And then we now again got another now who speaks the language fluently to help us in places where we were translating, just to make sure that even in terms of the speech, it actually sounds um, real. Then we tried as much as possible at the places that are talking about the real people. You
Yeah.
know, we did a lot of research, newspapers, books, and some of the things you hear are literally quotes from real people, right? That we've put into the story. All of this so that we respect the culture and the place, while
Yeah.
we need to tell real stories, because we need to let the world know what's really happening. Let's not be afraid. We see this about the Western world every single time we're hearing about how terrorism affects places like America or Europe.
Yeah.
What people don't understand, we have the Sahel region. If I can easily say, is the bedrock or the birthplace of where most terrorism breeds, and yet we're not tackling it as much as we should because there's improper.
Mm.
So we thought treat the material with respect, while simultaneously telling this crucial story, because we still
Sorry.
have some of those out there.
Wow. And I've already read the first two episodes, and it's already it's you can see how it's building up, and I can't stress enough the class with which the tale is being told and delivered. So thank you for that, for two really phenomenal episodes. I wanted to know if, in terms of, because you've mentioned, getting some facts, did you have any survivors, if it's comfortable to say, any source that was from anyone who witnessed events in there?
Oh yeah, so the good thing is that the story itself has been very, very widely reported,
True. Yes.
right? And so there are a lot of people who have survived, and the media has done a substantial amount of research on. And
Mm.
so we did a lot of our let me say storytelling was gotten from the eyewitness account of these
Yeah.
people as reported in the media. It was
Okay.
it was very, very conscious. Now, to be honest with you, we did reach out to a particular CNN presenter.
Mm.
I'm going to leave the name out.
Yeah.
Um, who talked extensively about this book, not about the book, about what's going on, who was there with the people as it was happening,
Mm.
and who championed it. We asked her if she could come and vet our book as we
Mm.
go along to make sure
Yeah.
that we stay true and we respected it. Unfortunately, she declined.
Mm.
And I understand and appreciate why. Even going into the book, a lot of people told us, "Oh, are you sure you want to step on these toes?" We got people telling us the federal government is not going to like it. That
Wow.
people who don't want, yeah, that people who don't want, this story to go public, and so they will stay away from it. I'm like, why would we want to hide a horror that is still happening?
Mm-hmm.
Because after Chibok, there's still a lot of people that are being adopted, and I don't
Yeah.
think enough is being done. I also believe, I mean, every day we see what's happening in Syria,
Mm.
right? We see what's happening in the Middle East.
In the
We
Middle East.
see
Yeah.
all of these things, right, going on, the particularly what's happening in Israel, even at the moment, right,
Mm.
at the West Bank.
Mm.
But you barely hear anything that's happening in the Sahel region of Africa
Yep.
right now. All you're hearing about is about a military president that the West are trying to take out. But
Yeah.
we're not talking about the victims, the foot soldiers. We're talking about the important people and head of states, important people in quotes.
Yeah.
So I don't think we should be afraid. So to answer your question, yes, we do have eyewitness accounts, but we didn't speak to them directly, but we
Yeah.
took the eyewitness accounts from reporters who have spoken to those people directly.
That's really, yeah. Thanks for that, and I completely agree with you in terms of not hiding the story. I don't see the benefit in not telling it. I mean, I am in a foreign country, and there are sometimes I get into conversations, and as much as I want to represent where I'm from, and I'm proudly Nigerian anywhere I go, I don't like sugarcoating things. So when I tell people what I love about Nigeria, I also tell them things that could be improved on and things that need to be changed. There's no, because the truth is, why am I sugarcoating it? Everywhere has challenges, but let's say it's the way it is. So I was just blown away by this story. But let me just take this a bit further. In terms of your creative process, how do you come about with a masterpiece like Chibok from start to finish? I have tried making a comic like artists usually do when you're young. You already see the Captain Americas, the Superman of the whole. And I have watched an interview where you talk about those characters. But how do you bring these characters to life? What's the creative process like?
Oh wow, you want your show to be 1 hour long, but let me.
I'm sorry about this. I couldn't. How often will I have you on my show? I was just thinking of what I would ask you.
But thank you, very good question. A is we love storytelling.
Hmm.
We love the medium of storytelling, and then we also love their African narrative. And so, because of the passion that comes out from anybody that's coming into Comic Republic, one of the things that we try to find out is your love for you know all of those things.
Hmm.
And so, the very first part is taking the material and the medium seriously, and not just treating it with excitement, but treating it with professionalism.
Hmm.
And so we do that first with a lot of research.
Okay.
Before Chibok issue 1 came out, we're looking at about almost 4 to 6 months of preparation before we even started. It was coming up with the ideas. For example, the very first thing is the treatment on the characters. Who are the characters about? Do you
Yep.
understand? Fatima, Hawa, what
Yep.
are they about, right? Their names. So those characters, for example, even though you're hearing them saying 1 or 2 names, they both have 3 names. They have parents. They have the regions where they come from. You
Yeah. There's a
understand?
background story to all of that.
Yes. And then we have to do like a small summary of what the first story arc would be like, right? Sometimes we do as much as 50 something pages of just world building. This is not even the story itself. We have to do like a short summary, and this is the beginning, this is the middle, and this is the end. And these are all the things that are gonna happen in between before we even start fleshing it out. And so that's the first part. And then we run this to, we have 2 parts of that process. So we have the head of conceptualization and characterization, and then we have the head of story writing. So those 2 departments and heads have to approve the story concept, right? Immediately after that, we go to our art director, who works with the head of conceptualization to come up with the characters who will live in that world.
Yeah.
Right. Once all of that is done, then we start to pick the team based on the type of story. So we don't just say, "Hey, you can draw, come and do it." Oh, no, no, no. You're like, okay, whose art better depicts the mood and the storytelling here? So, for example, if you're looking at a comic book like Vanguard, you will see that it will be completely different from the mood and the story of something like Chibok, or even something like Ajer, for example.
Yep. Yep.
So you look at all of those things, and we use that to carefully pick the team. And then once we're done picking the team, we also pick the editorial team. The editorial team are the guys who are going to do the lettering, and then all of the later finished effects in terms of sound effects, and then piecing it together into a book. So that's in its summary. I could flesh it out.
I can appreciate it's a detailed process, more detailed than you told me. So thank you. I respect you for summarizing it that way. Let's now look a bit about the message to Nigerians. What are you hoping to achieve with this? What's the end goal? And if you could please link that as well with how this comic will be made available to, because I'm thinking you have some target audiences you're trying to reach. So can you help us understand that a bit?
Okay, so the message to Nigerians, there are 2. First things first is to the women, right? As men, right? In terms of security of this country, I personally feel like we have failed our women. I
Mm.
don't feel like we have done enough to protect our women from the people who would want to do harm.
Even.
So we are hoping that the story of Fatima and Hawa will show how women can also take charge and come back from despair.
Mm.
You know, um, we live in a world where sometimes women are suppressed, and a lot of things would have gotten better if they could fight for themselves, where the men are absent, and sometimes where the men are the ones who are the predators, right?
Yeah.
And which I believe is what is happening when you have terrorists who are mostly
Men.
men and sometimes women preying on the weak. And it really doesn't matter the gender, as long as there's somebody preying on the weak. I feel
Yeah.
like whether you're a man or a woman, you should defend yourself. So I'm hoping that the story can push, women to start to think about survival instincts on their own. So that's one. The other aspect of it is like how the world is sensitive to anything terrorism and the Middle East.
Mm.
How the world is sensitive to anything terrorism and the Middle East. I am hoping that it's the same way people will be sensitive to the Sahel region. I'm looking at the news right now, and we're talking about Ibrahim Tori, and we're thinking that that is the biggest problem. Them like, no, 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 no. That whole sector has a problem with terrorism,
Mm.
right? And Nigerians are in high places around the world, right? Why are we not coming together to fund either the government or any kind of or create any kind of security umbrella
Mm.
for that region? I feel like we're not doing enough. So I feel like if this thing's in the hands of people who have capacity, they might want to do something about it. And so we
Yeah.
feel
Yeah.
like putting the story out there would help.
Wow.
And so you go through the story of two girls who go from being weak
Yeah.
to being strong at the end of
Yeah.
the day, who go through hell and come out of it in their own ways. And that's where the story is going to how, they survive such a horrible thing in an unfriendly condition or environment, and
Yeah.
how,
Yeah.
they survive all of it if they do survive all of it. And,
Mm.
there's also, you find out that a lot of people who go into crime or who do, let me put it this way, who do unkind things to other people actually don't know what it feels like. They are insensitive. They're
Yeah.
tone deaf to the pain that they're causing. So, it's something that's happening a lot these days where you find a lot of people that are just insensitive, don't understand how much hurt they cause other people until they experience it themselves in an emotional way. And you find that it creates rehabilitation, it makes them change.
Mm.
So we feel like, if people see how painful it is, the amount of pain they cause, if you've read the book, we focus a lot on the pain that the women are going through.
Yep.
Right? And so you might start to think this is not right. Maybe we shouldn't be doing what we're doing. So we're hoping that the book also has that kind of effect. Eventually, the plan for the book is that, and we're actively, seeking it to be converted into some kind of TV series.
Oh, I knew that's what we're. That's good one. Yeah.
Yes. So that, it's on a wider medium and people can actually experience it with their, with more senses than just looking and reading, but, they can
Mm.
hear and then they can feel the actors bring it to life.
Yeah.
That way we do feel that they might be, I mean, if you look at recently, there's a movie on Netflix called Adolescence, right?
Yes.
And there's now more, the light has been shed on what young men go through
Go through.
at a
Yeah.
certain age and how it can how it can affect what they do altogether. We feel that this will also shed light on the militarization of the Sahel region,
Yeah.
the lack of security in that region,
In that
the
region.
lack
Yeah.
of infrastructure in that region, what the international community can do, what the local community can do, right? Why we should be putting more investment in those areas. And this is investment in security, not investment for return.
Mm.
Things like that. We're hoping that the comic book will be able to push all of that message, to the
Wow.
consciousness of a wider audience.
Thank you. Thank you. That's I'm glad. At least I'm happy that it's because I didn't know about it. I'm happy that I got through to know about it through media such as Instagram, for instance. It shows how accessible this information can be. Um, Tell me about the feedback that you've gotten so far from people. I mean, you've already gotten me as a fan, but are there any other stories or feedback you would like to share?
Oh, it's been amazing. I mean, we're just 2 books in.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
just recently, there's an award body in the US, and they have 8 categories. And Chibok was nominated for 7 of those 8
Wow.
categories. Yes. So it's already, and this is a body that we have no affiliation with, you know,
Wow.
we don't know. And it's just been amazing. I mean, speaking to you is one,
Hmm.
right? And we've just been getting a lot of this is at least the 4th interview so far for a book that's just 2 issues in,
Mm-hmm.
right? On this particular book alone. And this is us not seeking marketing in any shape or form. It's the same way you reached out to us to say this is something that I want to talk about, and
Yeah.
rightfully so. We understand. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. We're excited, and we've gone from being worried because we did get a lot of worry internally. I remember the head of writing being very worried. That some people don't come and visit us in our offices,
Hmm.
and we're like, some stories need to be told, right?
Yeah.
So the feedback has been amazing, and
That's
we're
good.
grateful that we're telling the story.
That's really good. I'm yeah. I can only hope and wish for the best, and I'm excited about how it is going. So tell me about the Nigerian comic space. We're still going to go back to some of the stories you've been telling, but I want to know about your experience in the Nigerian comic space because you've been doing this now for I think about over a decade, 12 years, 13 years. So can you please just share with us what that experience has been like, telling these stories and what the Nigerian comic space is like?
Oh wow. It's a mixture. It's an exciting mixture, right? I think about the community and I am constantly rejuvenated for the good and the bad,
Hmm.
right? So first starting off, we started at the point where nobody thought it was anything serious. Nobody thought, we had 1 or 2 people that were doing things by the side.
Yeah.
I think it was only one person um, who decided to make it a business at that point in time, but it wasn't even focused on comic creating itself. The gentleman named Ayodele Legba, he created comic convention at that point in time.
Hmm.
And, I still respect his foresight then because we didn't have comics. We just had people
No.
who were doing it as a passion at
Oh.
that point in time, right? But I took that and said, okay, why don't I actually create a business out of making comics itself, right? And that was very interesting. And even up until recently, we made the comic books free, right? Um,
I was going to ask you how that is even a possibility. That was going to be one of my questions, but you jumped the gun. Tell me about this.
yeah, well, I'll come to that in a second. So keep the question. Don't worry, you come
Okay.
to that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've gone through the humbling process of seeing how you can be helping people, and I say that every day. And the very people that you're trying to help fight you, there's a and I see it in this generation where you do something kind and they're expecting more, so you do something and they're like, but you didn't do this, you didn't do it at the
Hmm.
level, and I don't have to do it anyway, but why are we not appreciative? So there's that aspect where we're creating comic books free, and um, people are looking for the next best thing that they have to pay for, simply because people are throwing promises on real promises at them. So I've gone through that phase where, gaining the interest of the community, gaining the interest, and for people to see what is really necessary, and which is why we put the books out free. We wanted people to grow a culture and actually believe in
Yeah.
African comics, because till right now, till today, you say something about Superman and Spider-Man and people are excited, but this is a community that has been growing for almost 100 years, right? The
Yeah.
Superman and the Batman, and
Hmm.
we were 13 years in, so we needed to build that culture and build it really fast. And the best way to get people into something is to give it out free, right?
Wow.
Then the other aspect is, we're working hard on building infrastructure, right? As a creative in Nigeria, we're too bent on collecting handouts, We're constantly looking for people who would help us. We're constantly looking for people who come and invest in us, but we're not creating infrastructure ourselves.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was very crucial that we create infrastructure.
Hmm.
Um,
I can see it already. You're a visionary because like I said, I was doing comics, but it was all local. I never thought or phantom that there was ever a time that we would have Nigerian comics inspired by Nigerian tales. And even when I was inventing comics, like I heard in one of the interviews you'd given a few years back, where you said some of our comics were seem to have a westernized background. You can almost taste the western aspect of it. But I see what you've done with Amadioha. I see what you've done with Ireti, and it's mind-boggling. It's amazing.
and so, you know, building infrastructure
Hmm.
is key. That way we own our own fortune. Right now, we create comics and we put it on platforms like Webtoon, Global Comics, and stuff like that. Comic Republic has its own platform where with 1,000 naira you can read all of our books presently. 1,000 naira subscription, and where from that subscription we'll be paying creators, right? Who can now take this as a serious business and make money from it, and it belongs to us Nigerians. We don't have to, you know, follow the rules or have to succumb ourselves to the agenda of aliens to our country,
Hmm.
right? And it's the same thing that we're doing now with Motion Plus, where we start creating animation, and we are going to
Yeah.
create a platform where people in Africa can come and place their animations and then make money because it will be subscribed also. And all of this will be Nigerian or African owned. And so that's the plan, and that's the environment we've been growing in. It's been interesting. Um, we live and die for the community, whether the community likes it or not. Um, we know that the community will come to appreciate the goodwill that we're doing. Like I said, we've been giving our comic books free up until this year,
Hmm.
and that's 12 years of free comic books, simultaneously paying creators to make those books, simultaneously building the industry. Um, and we're proud. We're proud that we're doing.
That's an amazing one. An amazing one. Tell me, sir, are there any other stories, I mean, in the pipeline, that because Nigeria there's a lot that's happened in our history. And I really like something you said about one of the motivations behind telling this is so that the story itself is not forgotten. Because I know that I worry, and a few of my friends in diaspora, when we talk about losing culture, losing heritage, Nigeria will always be there. But there's a lot of our history that is not documented in a way that is accessible to the present generation or the generation after. It is only documented in a way that my fathers and their fathers before them would have access and understand the information. So I'm just wondering what Comic Republic is going to be doing towards this, if there are any plans for that.
Oh, there's a lot. I don't want to
Okay.
reveal. Let's put it that
I'll
way.
leave you there.
There's a lot. So one of the things that we're doing, and I'm sure you'll have noticed it. So, for example, we're doing good and bad, but we're doing a lot more stories focused on grounded things that happen to people in Nigeria, things that happen to people to us here, right?
Hmm.
Um, we signed a deal with Universal Studios to convert the Vanguard's universe to TV and film. So for
Okay.
us, that feels like we have started our spandex wearing superheroes out, right? And so right now, strategic wise, we're focusing on franchises that are more grounded, right? Let's allow Universal to do their thing, right?
Hmm.
And that is live action, it's not animation, which is why it's taking a little bit of time.
Hmm.
Um, so we're focused on a lot of stories like what you're talking about that will talk about what happened, our historical facts, what happened to you and me,
Yeah.
what's happening to us now, the issues we're having as human beings, and how we can move forward from there.
Wow. Wow. That's exciting. I can't wait to engage with all of that. Um, How can you, I'm sure you've already said a bit about this, how can you balance entertainment and real life storytelling without compromising either of them? I mean, I look at something like Chibok and the way it started. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but the way it started, I was like, oh, well, I can't remember this being any part of it. But then I now started seeing when it moved back in the past and came to the, I was like, okay, now I understand what's going on here. So please tell me a bit about balancing entertainment and the real life events.
So the first thing is making sure that I'll say that your source, you're staying authentic to the source.
Hmm.
And staying authentic is not the same as staying true to it. So staying true to it will be following it exact frame by frame. Staying
Hmm.
authentic is making sure that its foundation, all of the things, the building blocks of it is as close to realism as possible, right? And then from there you can start to build, add a bit of fiction to it. Also, because of legal reasons, you need to fictionize something because you can't tell a real story about a particular thing or event without offending one or two people. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that way, you take those things and fictionize them just a little bit, and then you can build. Now, the things that you fictionize, make it clear that this is fiction. So, for example, if you're looking at Chibok, you can easily tell, you can see how we're switching to the part that's completely fiction to the part that's
Yeah.
it's actual history, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so at every point in time, you will be able to say, okay, yeah, we've gone into the movie part of this thing, and then we've gone into the history part of this thing.
Yeah.
That way, so it's making sure each part is standing out and making sure it's not mistaken where this is the fantasy part of the story, and then this is the
Yeah.
real life part of the story. So that's how we balance it, making them distinct, true, and original to their genre.
Okay. Well, you've already answered the part where I was going to ask if it was going to evolve into anything more than just a comic book, because I can see now that there are plans in the works. Um, but what do you now? We're slowly coming to the end of this, but I want to know what you expect teenage girls and young women to take away from this. What would they be leaving after reading this comic?
Your life is yours. You have a responsibility to
Hmm.
defend yourself, right? And when I use the term responsibility, and this is even for the men, if you love the women around you, empower them to be able to defend themselves, right? As men, you want women who are confident to defend and speak up, right? While simultaneously doing it respectfully. So you want to build a generation of women who know how to respect their fellow human beings, not just men.
Yeah.
We're in a world where we're living that world anyway, where some people think that a man oppressing a woman and putting a woman under control is the way forward. No, no. If you have another person who respects you and loves you, but yet is capable on their own, then you're better off yourself,
Yep.
right? Because you can't always watch your back. You can't always also watch the woman also. So I want young girls to understand that the responsibility to take care of themselves, to defend themselves is theirs, right? And if they are blessed enough, right, to have a man who has taken that responsibility as his own, they should still ensure and try to make sure that they still build the capacity, either financially, physically. Women should exercise more. Women should look out for things on survival tips. Women should learn
Hmm.
one kind of self-defense, one way possible. They should build their capacity in terms of stress. They should build their capacity. They should have knowledge on what to do. So for example, Hawa is a good example in the story.
Mm-hmm.
We read it where you see that you can see that the influence of her father on her.
Yep.
She goes, my
Yep.
father
Yep.
takes me hunting, my father does this, my father does that.
Yeah. Her
Um,
survival mode just kicked in right from from the get go.
yes, so that's what we want young girls to take out. That the responsibility to take care of yourself is yours. You might find yourself in situations where your protector or provider might not be around. You now have to become the protector and provider.
Hmm. And this is really important, sir, because I'll say at this platform that I have two daughters, and even running up to this interview, I had to think to myself, I said, well, how am I daily contributing to their confidence and how they take care of themselves, how they protect themselves, protect others around them. And it was one of those moments where I had to hit myself in the head, say, well, you must do this and extra. This will help them a bit more. So yeah, thanks a lot for sharing that. And yeah, I can see how as someone you don't want to mess with on a normal day. Okay, but now Tell me, let's leave Chibok girls. I've taken as much as I can take without taking too much of your time. I want to speak a bit more about Comic Republic as a whole. How did you get your team together? Because everybody is an artist. How were you able to identify those parts of the organization and the best people suited to that role? I'm wondering this. Have you ever worked for Marvel? Have you ever worked for DC? How did you sort this out?
This one, I'll just give God the glory. I think I think the wisdom just came from him because there's so many things that keeps showing me that I was made to do this. Let me put it that way.
Hmm.
I'm not going to tell you I went to any kind of school of art. I never went to a school of art. I'm not going to tell you I interned in any other place. I just knew what needed to be done at a point in time, and I still know. And I know these things at the point where people don't know. So from the very beginning,
Hmm.
imagine 13 years ago when I said I want to start a comic book company. Everybody thought I was going crazy. And then I go into the industry and I say, I'm not doing print. I'm going to do only digital comics. Fact, we were the first digital comic book ever.
Oh.
Fact. Most people downloaded and shared. So, they buy a comic book and then they scan and then they send the scanned copy out to people. But we're the first company to come out and say, you know what, we're only doing digital. You can only read our books online and it's just going to be digital. At a point where everybody was just thinking print was the way. All right. So the only way I can describe that knowledge is God.
I like that.
I would say that I was led. I still think I'm being led. Again, like I said, we have our own platform today that will stand beside Webtoons or any other thing. We have a whole system that I know that has to be wisdom and grace of God. So I'm grateful. I think I was gifted, and I'm grateful for that gift.
Because I look at people like you. I can't help but reflect on something I heard not too long ago from someone who said that vision. Again, I come back to why I think you're a visionary. Visionaries see things where others don't see them, and they can't help it. It's not like they inspire themselves to become visionaries. Sometimes I do some things and I explain it to other people and they can't get it. And then I say to myself, maybe the reason they can't get it is because they weren't meant to do it in the first place. A visionary is the one who should do it because they are the only ones who see it. I'm not going to blow too much sunshine on your behind. Let me leave you alone on that. So finally, a few more questions. How do you spend your time when you are not telling stories? So that I just wanted to ask about Sir Jide the man. How do you spend your time when you're not telling stories?
That's an interesting conversation. So I said that's an interesting conversation. I have this gentleman who is my friend who started a company where he's a coach. He's a life coach and he just speaks to people. And he left this, 6-figure job because he said he wasn't finding fulfillment and that he just wants to coach people. And I went to see him and I just said, why don't you just start a company? And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, why don't you just start a company? And vis-a-vis, he was with me recently and he was telling me, he was coaching me. So he went on to successfully create that company. He's doing very well right now. And so he was coaching me and then he asked me the same question. And I said, Comic Republic is me and I am Comic Republic. All I do every day is Comic Republic. And most people think I'm making that up, but no. I would say that right now, my assistant, I'm sure she can't wait to leave me because she's with me meetings till like 9-10 and first thing in the morning. And I think, unfortunately for her, she's also becoming Comic Republic because now she's calling me to say, this person has sent this, and I'm like, go to bed, So it's what I do, unfortunately and fortunately. It's not work for me, it's me. I have fun when I'm dealing with Comic Republic issues. It has no longer, I have gone from a place of it becoming a sprint to a marathon. Nothing, I take it because as long as I live, I know I'm going to be doing Comic Republic. I make sure things are well done. I take my time to do things and then I do them very well. And so it's the same as me eating every day, same as me having my bath, same as me talking about the business. So I do Comic Republic when I'm not working. When I'm not doing Comic Republic, I'm probably sleeping. or I'm riding, right? I'm
Hmm.
in London right now, so my
Yeah.
background is my London home.
Mm,
And as
mm.
you can see at the back, you can see helmets, right? So I'm
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
biker. I love riding. So I take long rides, but I mean, I do that maybe every weekend for like 3 or 4 hours, and then I'm back. And even when I'm watching content, I'm looking at content that can enrich my mind
Yeah.
in terms of creating content.
Mm.
So
Wow. Thank
I
you.
would say outside Comic Republic, I'm still Comic Republic.
Oh, that's amazing, Sajive. I just really appreciate you for this. Thank you for the time you've given. Now, the thing is, I know you're a busy man, so I'm just going to tell you what I've done. Whilst we were speaking, this is an art podcast after all. And so I was making some art, and I want to take out some time to show you the art that I've made. I'm going to send you the original copy as an appreciation. But I was able to make a
Oh,
character. So I have titled this character. It's on his chest. It's written ST, storyteller. So I imagined you as a superhero, and this is you, sir, as our personal superhero for telling African stories in a very entertaining way, but sticking to the facts as much as possible. I appreciate you, sir, and thank you for coming on my show.
thank you very much for having me.
So this is us ending. I can't wait to hear what Comic Republic has for us in future. Please follow them on their socials and share the message. Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.